Welcome to The Homeless Conservative, a show about principled politics for exhausted citizens. I'm your host, Blake Fisher. I'm a political junkie so that you don't necessarily have to be. Although, what a weekend. I think we're all aware of what happened over the weekend. I don't think you have to be a political junkie to be aware of the fact that someone tried to assassinate a former president and a current presidential candidate in Donald Trump. I wanted to talk a little earlier than normal this week because I was a little disillusioned by how bad the response on Saturday was to the news, in the sense that I was at the lake with some friends. We heard the news. We turned it on. First of all, it was pretty funny to us how a lot of CNN headlines were like, Secret Service rushes Donald Trump off stage after he falls. I think it's pretty obvious. I understand that the journalists are trying to do their job to not report anything until it's confirmed. However, it's pretty obvious that shots were ringing out if they were there, and Trump was bloody. And he could have, obviously the blood could have come from a fall or something like that. But, it was pretty obvious that something bad had happened, and Donald Trump had not just fallen on stage. So, we start with just that basic premise that we were maybe a little slow to confirm the things that we knew had already happened, but I'll leave that aside, and I'll leave the media criticism out of this. But I will criticize the fact that immediately, I think what people like to do is get on Twitter or wherever and start trying to find information about what happened. And within half an hour of it happening, I'm with mostly conservative people. I'm actually mostly with friends that are much more supportive of Donald Trump than I am. Not that that's a high bar to jump over. But obviously we're talking to people too, all of us individually, and we're hearing stories that this is staged by Donald Trump himself, that this is fake. I am talking to some guys I do a show with, one of whom is ex-law enforcement, who says, it doesn't sound like gunshots to me. I think this is fake. This is a paintball gun, which I think was a ridiculous notion from the get-go. We could all watch the audio and hear what was happening. To me, it's very clearly gunshots. Just so obviously gunfire. And I think what happened is people jump into what they want to preconceive the notions to be. And so if you're a supporter of Donald Trump, you think that this is obviously an assassination attempt by Joe Biden. And we had elected representatives of the United States of America in Congress saying as much, calling for the arrest of Joe Biden, because this was obviously directly connected to him. Ridiculous. It's also ridiculous on the left, where I'm hearing immediately in the aftermath that this is a staged thing. I realize that as they're saying that, they don't have enough information to know that one person has died, the former president of the United States has been shot, and two other people are in critical condition. It's really gross to suggest that anyone would fake this thing, getting multiple people killed, that the Secret Service was in on it or something. We don't know any of this stuff yet. And sure, there could be some conspiracy theory. There could be some conspiracy here. There could be. But to say so without any evidence whatsoever is not just foolish, it's wrong. It adds fuel to the fire that is already obviously raging since someone decided to try to assassinate one of the two candidates for president. I realize there are other people running for president, and let's be honest, one of the two people that's going to win this. Someone thought it was worth taking into their hands, trying to eliminate one of them. I don't believe for a second that's not because of some sort of excusing of violence and rhetoric. And we don't know any of that yet about the shooter. So we will talk about the shooter in a little bit. But the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this was a complete and abject security failure on the part of the Secret Service. I don't have to know a lot to know that there was a failure here somewhere. We just don't know where it is yet, and there should be investigations into it. So let's talk about that first, because I can't understand how this even got close to happening. I don't understand how this guy got shots off. I don't understand how he got on a roof within about 130 yards of the president, the former president, and a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, speaking. Let's just show you a couple things in case you're watching, because I think the visual does matter here. This is an aerial view of the area in Butler, Pennsylvania, where they are doing the thing. It's not labeled very well because the screen grab didn't actually have the text on it, but this middle square is where Donald Trump is speaking. And over to the left on the aerial image, but to Donald Trump's right at about, I don't know, we'd call it a 45-degree angle, there's a building about 130 yards away where the shooter crawls up on that building and between buildings, where multiple people on the ground saw him doing so with a rifle and brought it to the attention of the security on the ground near the building, which was local law enforcement, not Secret Service. But you got to understand, Secret Service is in charge of this entire area. And I've never set up security for an event ever in my life. This is not my background at all. However, if someone said, why don't you just take a shot at it and see if you think you could lay out a security plan for this? Well, I would look at the building that's 100 yards away from the guy speaking that we're supposed to be protecting, and I would say, we need someone on top of that building. We don't know a lot yet. The things we do know right now is that the Secret Service, the building was outside the perimeter, but that doesn't mean that they don't have security outside the perimeter. And allegedly, Secret Service said that building was under the purview of local law enforcement, who of course are coordinating with Secret Service. But like I said, I don't understand why Secret Service would not have someone on top of that roof, whether they were local law enforcement or Secret Service. I don't know. I don't know why no one was on top of that roof. So that's a failure, first of all. It's also a failure that for whatever reason, we saw a guy on a roof with a rifle and he was not taken care of. Allegedly, an officer did make it to the roof, and when the shooter pointed his gun at him, he backed down. I have not totally confirmed that. Some of this is eyewitness accounts. Obviously, there's going to be a whole investigation here. But what we do know is that someone managed to get on top of that roof and fire, I think most people are saying 8 shots. They think he got off before he got attacked by right behind where Donald Trump is speaking on this white building is where Secret Service was, where their snipers were, okay? So they're the ones that take out the shooter eventually, but not before they get shots off and critically wound 2 people, kill 1 person, and shoot the ear of Donald Trump. The top of his ear got hit. I don't think maybe everyone doesn't understand how close we were to him being assassinated. I think the head of the Secret Service needs to resign. It should already have resigned. This is an absolute failure. And so because of this failure, we saw conspiracy theories automatically come out on both sides. One, from the right, saying this is obviously an assassination attempt coordinated by the federal government, the bureaucracy, and Secret Service was in on it because this is such a failure. And then on the left, we saw, well, this is a staged event. This is not real. This was Donald Trump's doing, and maybe it's a BB gun or an airsoft gun, or there's something and it's not real. Well, there are 2 people in critical condition and 2 people dead, including the shooter. And Donald Trump got shot in the ear. I mean, what do you think that this is WWE and he had a razor blade in his hand and cut his ear? Do you think that look, I don't like Donald Trump. I think it's been very clear if you've ever listened or watched my stuff that I don't like him. I don't wish him to be assassinated, though, and I also don't think that he has the capability to stage his own assassination. It's ridiculous. But that's how dug in we are, that we can't even look at the facts in front of us and come to a reasonable conclusion. We have to jump to conspiracies are everywhere. And I'm not saying the federal government does behave badly sometimes. They absolutely have in the past, and we certainly can't discount them behaving badly right now. However, let's just talk about the Secret Service for a little bit, because this is not a one-off problem. The Secret Service has had problems for decades now. The last successful attempted assassination of a president was Ronald Reagan in 1981. It was John Hinckley. His motivation at the time, in case you weren't around then or haven't heard, he thought it would get him the notoriety to get the attention of Jodie Foster. He obviously did not know that Jodie Foster is a lesbian, and that probably wouldn't work. But that guy was crazy, and he tried to kill the president to get the attention of Jodie Foster. That's an actual crazy person. We don't have any indication at this point that the shooter here in this case was a crazy person. We've got no indication yet in the media or anywhere that he had mental illness. We don't have anything so far. We hardly know anything about him. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But talking about the Secret Service, since 1981, congratulations, you've managed to not get a president shot. However, there are so many problems. And I want to read a few of them. This is from National Review. Dominic Pino wrote a great article about called "The Secret Service Needs an Intervention." And I want to read over this entire timeline because I think it's really important. You hear me harp a lot about that the federal government and the bureaucracy is inefficient and they're bad at their jobs, kind of across the board. Guess what? The Secret Service falls under that too. I know the movies like to make us think that the Secret Service are kind of like the elite, most badass people on earth, and that they are incredible at their jobs. I have no doubt that some of the agents are. But we got to read through this list because I think it's important to understand the scandals that have been going on at the Secret Service for a long time now and have not been fixed. After I take a drink of water, though. Okay. So first of all, you may remember back in 2000, what was this? 2004, I think. There was a scandal where Secret Service agents were basically this is during Barack Obama's trip to Colombia, and they were out late partying and drinking hours before they needed to report to work to protect the president. And they were getting prostitutes back to their hotel rooms in Colombia. Okay. That was pretty bad. That kind of kicked off some stuff and some investigations into things. Okay. So this is a 229-page list of allegations from 2012 against Secret Service agents going back to 2004, okay? In 2009, a couple that was not on the approved guest list gained entry to Obama's first state dinner where he was hosting the Prime Minister of India. Secret Service later confirmed that the couple's credentials were never checked. The couple shook hands with Obama. Okay? That's pretty dangerous. 2011, Secret Service agents were reassigned from patrolling the White House to protecting the home of a personal friend of the agency's director. So agents were pulled from the White House and sent to a buddy's house to protect him instead. Okay? In 2011, a man fired at the White House with a rifle. The Secret Service mistook it for a backfiring car. They only discovered that the gunfire hit the building 4 days later when one of the White House housekeepers told them about it. In 2012, a Secret Service agent left a firearm in the bathroom of Mitt Romney's campaign plane. That's just a little bit of negligence, obviously, but leaving a firearm in a bathroom as a Secret Service agent, not a great look, because now on that campaign plane, the journalist that found it, for example, could have picked it up and assassinated Mitt Romney. Security checks don't really help if you leave a gun around for someone to grab, okay? In 2012, a Secret Service officer was found passed out on a sidewalk in Miami. He was not on duty at the time and was working in a support role for Obama's visit to the city, which had concluded 12 hours earlier. Not great. Yeah, so in 2014, 3 agents who were part of the team tasked with fighting off attackers of the president were placed on leave after heavy drinking during Obama's trip to Amsterdam. One of the agents was found in a hallway passed out drunk. A lot of drunkenness and drug use and prostitutes in these allegations, by the way. These are things that actually happened. These are confirmed, okay? In 2014, during a trip to Atlanta, a security contractor with a gun was in the same elevator as President Obama. The man took a video of Obama and did not stop when asked by the Secret Service, who did not realize until afterward that he had a gun. That's a problem. In 2014, a man with a knife jumped the fence at the White House, entered the building, and made it all the way into the East Room. He was stopped by an off-duty Secret Service agent. The alarm for the building was disabled because staff found it too noisy. Oh my gosh. In 2014, the Department of Homeland Security employee who led the internal review of the 2012 Columbia prostitution scandal was identified by a prostitute in Florida who said he had paid her for sex. So the guy investigating the Secret Service for this also, he refused to answer questions from the department's inspector general about the incident and then resigned. So this is the guy investigating the prostitution scandal who is also visiting prostitutes. In 2015, a Secret Service officer was fired after being arrested in a child predator sting operation where he sent naked photographs of himself to someone he thought was 14 years old. The online messages occurred while he was working at the White House. In 2015, two drunk off-duty agents drove into the secure area around the White House, colliding with a security barrier while on-duty agents were dealing with a bomb threat. One of the drunk off-duty agents was second in command on Obama's security detail. Obama, it's turning out, it's a miracle he wasn't killed somehow, if not by one of these drunk fools, right? In 2015... we'll skip the like sexual harassment stuff because as bad as that is, we'll get on that. In 2016, 41 Secret Service employees were disciplined after they leaked personal information about Representative Jason Chaffetz, the chairman of a congressional committee that was investigating Secret Service misconduct. An email from top agency official said Chaffetz, some information that he might find embarrassing needs to get out. More prostitution in 2017. In 2017, this is while Trump is president, a man jumped three fences to gain access to the White House grounds and walked around for 16 minutes. He had looked through a window and rattled a door handle of the building. I had got this confused. I knew at one point someone got in the White House. I thought that it was this guy. I was wrong about that. I may have said that in the past, so I was wrong about that. But he still walked around the grounds for 16 minutes before Secret Service figured it out. Not great. In 2017, Secret Service agents were accused of taking pictures with one of Donald Trump Jr.'s children while the child was asleep. Another agent reportedly dated Trump Jr.'s ex-wife. In 2019, a Chinese national carrying 4 cell phones and a malware-infected flash drive was allowed to enter Mar-a-Lago. He passed a Secret Service checkpoint and was not apprehended until reaching the club's front desk. This is bad, right? This is bad stuff. So in 2014, there was a panel of independent experts that basically came in and said, here, we've got 19 recommendations for the Secret Service to like improve some things, okay? In 2022, so that was in 2014. In 2022, the Government Accountability Office found that 6 of those recommendations were not fully implemented yet. So 6 of the 19 things 8 years later, we're still not implemented. One of those recommendations was that the agents that are actually on presidential and vice presidential duty should spend more time training. Their initial goal was 25% of their time training. Secret Service bargained that down to 12% because they said they didn't have the resources to do that. But the Government Accountability Office found that they never exceeded 7.5% between 2015 and 2020. So less than 10%, 7.5% of their time at tops has been spent in active training. These are the people that are actually protecting the president and the vice president. I don't think that's enough training. We talk about law enforcement training being necessary when we talk about innocent civilians getting shot by police, and I totally agree that that's true. This is supposed to be the most elite law enforcement agency in the country. The Secret Service, especially the people that are in the Secret Service that are specifically protecting the president and the vice president of the United States. And we are not giving them even, they're not even spending 8% of their time training, doing active training for this kind of stuff. The guy I was with at the lake pulled up a video, and this is a friend that's a former Marine. So he did combat in Iraq. So this guy knows how to handle a weapon, what's proper, what's not proper. And he showed me a video of one of the Secret Service agents, female agents, which, side note, by the way, call me sexist. I don't really care. I don't understand how Donald Trump, who I think is 6'3", 6'4", he says he weighs 220 pounds. Let's put that at probably more like 250. Why are any women on his security detail in a situation where if he had been shot and was down and couldn't stand up on his own, why are there you don't have the physical strength to pick him up? Anyway, she was trying to reholster her weapon and missed 4 times before having to kind of look down and reholster her weapon. A Secret Service agent on the detail of the president and or a presidential candidate, because like right now, Donald Trump gets the full Secret Service detail. He has a Secret Service detail all the time as a former president, but it's a smaller crew generally. But once you're running for president and you're the nominee, you get the full thing, right? You should, the Secret Service protecting Donald Trump or Joe Biden right now, or Kamala Harris, or whoever the VP pick is for Trump is, they should be able to holster their weapon without having to look down at the holster. I know that it was in the heat of the moment, but that's why training matters. You can't just spend less than 8% of your time training and expect to be able to even do something simple like holster your weapon well. So if you can't holster your weapon well, could you fire it well? Could you assess a threat well? Point is, these people, I don't think, did well under pressure. It was helpful to know that the Secret Service did know that the threat had been eliminated in the sense that the snipers had shot the shooter when Donald Trump stood up and did his kind of fist thing. However, there's no way they could have known that there was only one shooter or that the attack was over. The attacker, the shooter had explosive devices in his car and bomb-making materials at his house. So there's obviously some other gameplay here. We don't know, obviously, what was going to happen, but they don't know there's not a second shooter. They don't know any of this stuff yet. And it still took them way too long to get Donald Trump off stage and into the car. I don't understand why Donald Trump was on the stage at all. Once anyone got brought attention that there was someone crawling on a roof with a rifle, he should have been off the stage immediately. Secret Service should have swarmed him. He should have been off the stage and in a car and out of there. There is no reason that guy should have gotten shots off. It's not a conspiracy. It's because the Secret Service is maybe bad at their jobs. Just read off that whole list of things that they've gotten in trouble for over the last couple decades, the last couple administrations. That's a pretty bad list. Multiple situations where people are around presidents of the United States with weapons, or even without, that shouldn't have been there, got past security. That aerial shot, that building is so obviously a spot that you need to pay attention to. And no one was on that roof. And when they see a guy with a gun on the roof, the snipers didn't immediately take him out. Now, this is an interesting thing I also read. Part of the reason the snipers probably didn't see him is because the snipers are looking at like 1,000 yards out. They're looking way past the perimeter. They're looking at anything that might be coming from beyond, like 130 yards. And this is something I had to ask my Marine friend. I'm like, because I shoot, but I don't ever shoot at that. I go to the range and I shoot at 25 yards and stuff like that. I'm not shooting long range and stuff like that. But he's like, yeah, as a Marine, we would not pass our test if we couldn't hit that standing up, not even like prone or anything like that. Like we'd have to be able to hit a target 130 yards away. Or I think theirs is 150 yards away, standing up with their rifle, with their standard AR rifle, okay? The guys on the top, the snipers on top of the building, they are looking way past that. So this would be like, just to put it in perspective, if Donald Trump was on a football field in the end zone on a stage, they did not secure the stands right behind the other end zone. That's how close this was. This is not some crazy long distance away. So this is not some guy sniping from 1,000 feet away. So it was hard for the snipers to find him because they're looking 10x beyond where he was. Again, though, why was no one on top of the roof? Why were people not at least watching that roof more carefully? If you're not going to have someone on top of it, just a guy with binoculars maybe would work quite well. again, this seems like failure. It seems like the head of the Secret Service should have already resigned by now, in my opinion. And there will be an investigation into this. But the point is, the bureaucracy, the federal government is generally, my view is that they are generally very bad at their job. They're at least not efficient. And we should demand that they're efficient and they're good at their job in every area of the federal government, but especially the part that protects the people that we're saying need protection. The president, the vice president, presidential candidates, former presidents. This is a failure, and it bothers me. But we don't have to go to conspiracy theories to try to explain away why the failures happened. We don't have to jump to that the Secret Service was in on this and trying to allow Donald Trump to be assassinated. There's no evidence that that's the case. And Occam's razor would say it's more likely that it was a bad security plan and they didn't do their jobs well and communication was bad with local law enforcement. And, oh, by the way, law enforcement at the perimeter noticed the shooter and thought that he was acting suspiciously and notified Secret Service about it. So they were aware of the guy's presence before he even crawled on the roof. Maybe they lost track of him. We don't know any of this stuff yet. We don't have the exact timeline minute to minute and who said what. And that's going to take a while to sort out. But it needs to be sorted out. And we need to see where the failures were and how we can improve this in the future, because we were so close to... I cannot imagine what would have happened if they would have successfully killed Donald Trump. We were millimeters away. In fact, Donald Trump was turning to the right to look at a screen that was over there with a graphic on it. And honestly, if he had not turned his head so far to the right, that's not hitting his ear. If he's looking straight forward or even slightly to the right and not all the way as he was, that's not clipping his ear. That's going through his head. It's a real problem, and we would have had a real disaster. I really don't want to think about what would have happened. It's already heightened tensions enough with the fact that someone almost killed him. So let's talk about the lead up to this, because there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of days of this is the Democrats' fault. J.D. Vance came out and tweeted as much that this squarely lays on the president and the Democrats for saying that Trump is a threat to democracy. I think J.D. Vance went a little too far with that. I think I don't think what he said is fair. So we've got elected representatives coming out and calling out, this is on Joe Biden and the Democrats for calling Trump a fascist and calling him Hitler and saying it's the end of democracy. We don't know the political motivations of the shooter yet. We don't. He's a registered Republican. He's 20 years old. He donated to a Democratic cause when he was 17, so before he could even be registered to vote. It was $15. I'm not looking into it as much because it was like a get out the vote kind of thing. It's $15 doesn't seem like it screams, oh, this person's a progressive ideologue. And according to people he went to high school with, he was conservative in things like government classes. When they would poll people, he was always on the conservative side. The picture of him, for goodness sake, has Mount Rushmore and the American flag on it. It's all around the internet right now. So I think it's pretty clear this is a guy that at least leaned conservative. He registered as a Republican after 2020 and 2021. Because, I'm just doing the math. It's 2024 if he's 20 years old. 2 years ago, 2022, is when he was 18. Of course, we don't know when his birthday is. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. But the point is, he registered as a Republican after Donald Trump attempted to steal an election and January 6th happened. It doesn't seem very likely that he's, like I said, there's no evidence right now that he's some left-wing operative, that he's been watching MSNBC and paying attention to that rhetoric. We don't have any indication he's listening to the other rhetoric. But look, here's the honest truth. He's more like me, it sounds like, than anyone else, than the far left or the far right. If he's a Republican that tries to take out Donald Trump because he thinks he's a threat, maybe he considers himself a conservative that doesn't think Donald Trump is conservative. And that's something no one's bringing up. People love to say, oh, it's because he's obviously left-wing, and so he obviously listened to the violence of that, and that's got to be the motivation here. No one, I think, has thought about the fact that, Donald Trump said, if you support Nikki Haley, we don't want you. I'm not trying to speculate that that's what's happening. I'm just saying we need to keep a really open mind to the fact that we have no idea right now what his motivations were. He doesn't have a big social media presence. Doesn't seem to be any kind of stuff on there. There's no kind of manifesto that was left behind so far that we know of. I'm sure they're going to be digging through this guy's internet history extensively to figure out what kind of stuff he was reading, if he was posting stuff anywhere, etc. Truth is, we just don't know. We don't know if he was inspired by the leftist rhetoric. We don't know if he was inspired by Donald Trump's rhetoric. We don't know if, we have no idea. And it's at least as possible. Like I said, he's a registered Republican. His high school classmates claim that he was conservative. So it does seem at least likely that he's influenced by who knows what. He could also be crazy like John Hinckley and was doing this to impress, I don't know, who would be our version of that, of Jodie Foster now. I don't know, Sydney Sweeney. Let's just say it's her, okay? She's good looking. Maybe he's trying to impress her. We have no idea what his motivations were. So it's foolish to speculate that this is definitely to blame on Democrats. However, let's talk about the violent rhetoric, because I do think it's been excessive. And I hate to be the guy that says I told you so, but I'm kind of glad I get to say I told you so, because I have said over and over again that I don't see how we get through 2024 without some sort of political violence, because all it takes is one person that's easily influenced by it. It doesn't mean that there's going to be a civil war. Doesn't even mean there's going to be another January 6th or sort of Black Lives Matter protests and riots. All it takes is one person with a plan and access to a rooftop to potentially take out one of the two candidates. It's bad enough that he almost got killed. I think it's going to hopefully change some things in the ways that Donald Trump and Joe Biden, from the top down, tell everyone to cool the rhetoric. I give Trump's campaign credit. They have told all their staffers to dial it back. Joe Biden pulled campaign ads for a couple days just to be like, hey, we're dialing this back. Joe Biden on a call a couple days before said there should be a bullseye on Donald Trump. This is where I get conflicted. Back with the Gabby Giffords shooting, it was immediately assumed that by the left and the media that like, oh, well, this happened because of the violent rhetoric of the right. They tried to pin this on Sarah Palin because she had an ad that had like a target kind of crosshair thing on Democrats. There's all sorts of things that went into it. She tried to sue the New York Times for libel. I think that she should have won because they knew some of this stuff. They knew this had nothing to do with that shooter, and yet they used that narrative. That shooter was just crazy, honestly. And it had nothing to do, the political violence had nothing to do with him being influenced. In fact, he was left-leaning. And so the point is we always come out and we say like, oh, well, here's the violent rhetoric that caused this person to do it. First of all, we have free speech in this country. It's absolutely Joe Biden's right and every Democrat's right to say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. It's within their right. We can't try them if someone then tries to kill Donald Trump, and vice versa. People on the right are saying that Joe Biden is a threat to democracy, and that's their right. I think we could change the way we say that, though, because it's not just threat to democracy. Donald Trump has said, you won't have a country anymore. Joe Biden has said, basically, this guy's fascist. There's all this stuff on the left and the right saying the country will end. We will not have elections again. I've heard the Pod Save America guys say, this might be the last election you ever get to vote in if you vote for Donald Trump. That is catastrophizing things that are just, there's no evidence. You can look at Donald Trump's motivations and say that maybe he does. I obviously have. And I think that he has some undemocratic and some authoritarian tendencies for sure. But that does not mean you get to jump straight to the like, hey, it's the end of democracy. It'll be the end of your country. You're never going to get to vote again. He's going to, this is Joe Biden saying Mitt Romney, he's going to put you in chains, talking to a group of black people. He wants to put you back in chains. When we use that kind of rhetoric, it will excuse violence for someone that hears that. It doesn't have to be large groups of people. It just needs to be one person that decides to take a gun and start shooting people, or drive a van into a crowd of people or whatever it might be. And by the way, this is not a one-off incident. This has been escalating for a while. We had let's go backwards in time. No one probably remembers this. This wasn't but a year or something ago that there was a guy caught outside of Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's house with weapons and zip ties, and he was arrested. He was going to try to do something bad, assassinate, kidnap, something, a Supreme Court justice. Why do we think this guy signaled out Brett Kavanaugh? Do you think it might have to do with the fact that the left and the media were saying this guy was a rapist without any credible evidence and that he was a threat to democracy? I think that it might have something to do with that. I don't think he just randomly picked that guy. That's a problem. That's something that happened very recently. We've had January 6th, obviously, was Donald Trump's political violent rhetoric saying, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done, so we're going to go to the Capitol and we're going to fight. Now, I don't think we have a legal way to say that Donald Trump incited that riot. I don't think that is legally a threshold that he passed. But him saying an election was stolen that he knew wasn't stolen, we knew at the time it wasn't stolen, with zero evidence, caused the violence of January 6th. Donald Trump is to blame for that, and so are Republicans. Black Lives Matter, same situation. Mostly peaceful protest. Oh, violence is speech. Sometimes that was the left excusing violence on their side. So what we keep doing is we say the other side is a threat to democracy and we should do anything to keep them out of power. And then when our side does something violent to prevent that from happening, we pretend that didn't happen. So the left doesn't call out the violence on their side and the right doesn't call out the violence on their side. I hope, and I'm not going to get my hopes up too high about it, but what I hope happens after this assassination attempt is that Donald Trump and Joe Biden from on high say, we are not doing this anymore. I'm going to call out the things that I think Joe Biden is bad at and the things I think he will do that are going to be detrimental to the country and why I think I'm a better candidate. But I'm not going to say he's going to end democracy. I'm not going to say you won't have a country. I'm not going to, that would be nice if that's what came out of this. Donald Trump has already said he's rewriting his speech for the convention that's happening this week where he'll be nominated for president. I hope it has that kind of tone. Maybe almost getting murdered changes someone. I think Donald Trump, I do not like Donald Trump. I think he's a reprehensible human being, but I hope and pray that almost dying changes something about him where he realizes maybe that some of his ways have been foolish and caused some of this potentially. Not caused it in a way where you're actually culpable for it, but we keep escalating this rhetoric, and my hope is that this changes both people at the top of the ticket because they can control the people below them. If Donald Trump from on high said, you are out of here, I am not going to support you if you are an elected representative of this country or work for my campaign, and you come out and say something like Joe Biden is to blame for that potential assassination. Or that Joe Biden's gonna end democracy or whatever you want to do. And I hope Joe Biden does the same thing. It would be nice if we could go back. And I'm not saying that would work. Look, I'm not saying that people in America aren't angry and jumping to their own conspiracy theories anyway, and their own anger and their own violence. And it's all, look at social media. A staffer for a Democratic representative got fired because they basically tweeted afterwards like, man, and we couldn't get someone that's a better shot, and was basically complaining on Twitter that the assassination was not successful. And come on, that's wrong. You work for a representative in Congress and you think that that's appropriate to say. That's not appropriate to say no matter what. I don't care how much you don't like Donald Trump. Look, I've said even multiple times that I wish both Trump and Biden would die of natural causes so we could just get two better candidates. But I would never wish that someone kill either one of them. Not just because it's wrong, but because it would cause all sorts of political turmoil in this country. And it's yet to be seen. Obviously, that happens on Saturday. We got the convention today. We will see what the tone of the Republican National Convention is. I hope it's not vindictive. I hope it's not. It would be nice if Republicans, because they're the party I care about more than the other one, It would be nice if they took the opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to be the big people and we're going to stop this. It'd be nice if Joe Biden did the same thing so that we had it on both sides. I don't really care who goes first at this point. I just think that it's got to stop. It's ridiculous. And I've said over and over again, I think Trump is a threat. I think he has authoritarian tendencies. I do not think America will not exist in 2028, that there won't be elections in 2028. I think it's ridiculous. I think our institutions held when he tried to steal an election in 2020. Now, I mean, I do worry about the fact that he's going to put worse people around him. He's not going to have Bill Barrs. He's not going to have John Bolton's. He's not going to have Mark Milley's. He's not going to have any of these adults around. He's not going to have Nikki Haley's. He's not going to have... I think he will only put sycophants around him that tell him yes. And so if Donald Trump's worst instinct is to do something illegal, I think he'll do the illegal thing because no one will stop him. I do think that's dangerous. I do not think it will mean that we don't have an election for president in 2028. If I'm wrong, I will be wrong. And obviously that'd be a very scary situation, but there's no evidence that that's going to happen with either one of these guys. If Joe Biden gets in the White House and he's too old, I think we could have a real crisis. I think potentially could cause World War III. But I don't think America will end because, I mean, I guess if China wins World War III, maybe, then America's over. But I mean, my point is, let's make the argument that way then. Let's say that Biden's too old to do the job of being the president. Let's actually point to the facts and the real stuff. Let's just stop with the threatening stuff because it's excusing violence. And we've got to stop excusing the violence on our side. Donald Trump, it would be great if he came out and said, you know what? I've incited some of this similarly on the other side. And Joe Biden could come out and say the same thing. I shouldn't have used the word, let's put a bullseye on Donald Trump. I shouldn't have said that you won't have a country anymore. I shouldn't have said that it'll be the end of democracy. It would be nice if both of them came out and apologized for their rhetoric being maybe a little too amped up, even just to hedge on the fact that, like, look, I don't know if the shooter was inspired by me, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the things I was saying was irresponsible and could have been. That's really optimistic, wishful thinking on my part, but there has to be something at some point that kicks us in the pants. And I just wonder if like 9/11 was a thing for my generation that I think woke the country up and in some ways united it. I think in the response to it, it didn't last very long with going into Iraq and stuff. Obviously that was a huge divisive thing, but 9/11 was sort of this uniting thing. I don't know that this is like that. This is one assassination attempt of one person. It's a little different than a terrorist attack that it kills 3,000 people. But it just doesn't seem like we took the riots of Black Lives Matter very seriously because the left didn't take them seriously. And we didn't take January 6th very seriously because the right, including Donald Trump, who calls them hostages, to me, that excuses their behavior. It says these people did the right thing on January 6th, and therefore I support them. I think that we've got to be able to call the violence out on our side, or this will not stop. This will not be the last assassination attempt that we have. This continues to happen, and Donald Trump was almost killed. I mean, by millimeters. We are so close to him being killed that it's very, very lucky. And I think that's the only excuse. Like I said, that his head was turned slightly more because he's looking at a screen. Because there were so many failures going into it. And he still got clipped on the ear. Ooh, I mean, I can't imagine what would have happened if he would have been killed. I think that we'd have... And there is real anger on the right. And Donald Trump is the person that can control that. I've said over and over again in arguments about January 6th that my biggest problem with January 6th is not Trump's lead up to it, but the fact that he didn't do anything to stop it for hours, even though people were begging him to, because he liked what was happening. Donald Trump has sway over his followers more than maybe any political person in my lifetime. Does he have complete control over his base? Donald Trump right now, it would be great if he came out and said, you know what? We are not going to call for violence. We are not going to say that there are Democrats that should be hung, or military tribunals, these are things that he's openly talked about. He retruthed a post the other day. Let's see, what did it say? It said, actually, maybe I don't have that up in front of me. Anyway, it was like a thing basically saying, it was an image saying we should have televised military tribunals for people like Liz Cheney because she's guilty of treason, and he reposted it. That's ridiculous. She didn't do anything treasonous. Calling for treason, the penalty for treason can be is the death penalty. We used to hang people for it. We still can use the death penalty for treason. So when you endorse the fact that you're someone that disagrees with you politically and has called you out for your behavior is guilty of treason, indicating that, he's endorsed. He said, I believe he quoted saying, Mark Milley should be tried and he should be hanged. Trump has violent rhetoric too. It would be nice if this changed him, and I would like to see it come from him. He does have the kind of influence over his followers that Joe Biden, frankly, does not. People are voting for Joe Biden because they don't like Trump. Trump actually has a fanatic base. And Trump could take this time to say, we want you to vote for me. We want you to fight for your country, but we do not want you to be violent. We don't want you to call for violence. Stop it. And Joe Biden can do the same thing. Be better. I don't know. I'm not going to say that we deserve better leaders because I'm not sure that we do. We keep picking these people and we keep allowing the parties to be absolute. Just there's no redeeming quality of the parties right now. They are weak. They are not doing their job. They are not trying to govern like they want majorities. It's like they both want to be permanent minorities so that they can be like, look, we got to fight the other guy. It's like, it's all negative polarization. It's all, they're the evil ones, so vote for us. It's a mess. I'm not sure that we deserve, because like Republicans voted for Donald Trump in the primaries. They really wanted him. They're going to get what they deserve one way or another, okay? They're going to get what they want, whether it's good or bad. But I do think it would be nice if we had some leaders that actually put their country and the health of the country over their own egos for a second. It would be really nice if both these guys weren't running for president, because I think that's really what they should have done a long time ago. I think Donald Trump should have said, you know what? I'm going to let someone else do it. I did what I said I was going to do and put all this behind us, put him behind us. And Joe Biden could do the same thing. Neither one of them will. But it would be nice if they at least put an effort to saying, what can we do to stop the violent rhetoric? And I'm not saying, again, that Democrats caused this to happen or Republicans caused this to happen. We do not know enough, and do not trust anything that doesn't come from the investigations from the FBI and Secret Service. Don't even trust it if it comes from elected representatives right now, because they're lying too. I just mentioned that someone said, there's all sorts of things that elected representatives are saying that I think are not responsible. Certainly don't get on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok to figure out what's going on. You might get some insight, but take everything you read or see with just the tiniest grain of salt, and then try to find something that debunks it, because chances are it's not true. We saw all sorts of disinformation within minutes of the thing, that it was fake, that Trump faked it, that it was paintball guns or BB guns, or that this was staged, or it was a coup attempt by the Secret Service and Joe Biden and the Justice Department. We've got no evidence that any of that is true on either side. People just retreat to their corner and start saying stuff. It would be nice if our leaders were responsible too, but some of them are not either. So we can't trust them necessarily. I'm not saying you have to just trust it just because now you got to only pay attention to mainstream media, but pay attention to people that have a track record of telling the truth and getting things right. That's kind of hard in this situation. It's going to take a while before we know everything about this investigation of what happened, where the security failures were. But I'm confident that we will find that there were security failures here. So pay close attention. I think more so than you would have. I'm going to pay more attention to the Republican National Convention this week than I would have otherwise, because honestly, I don't know what I would have really learned. But I think that maybe it changes now, and maybe it's a little different. And we'll pay attention to Biden too. I don't think, by the way, that this. I'm not going to stop criticizing Donald Trump and his behavior when I think it's bad, just because he got shot at. Because this is another thing that got brought up. Well, now you have to support him now. No, I don't. Just because someone tried to kill someone doesn't mean they get my support all of a sudden, or I think he'd be a good president. Donald Trump does have a chance to turn his image around here, though. And I think that he could really do, like I said, maybe that changes someone. I certainly think a near-death experience, not just near-death, but near-assassinated experience, would maybe change me. That's a tall order to ask of a 78-year-old who's clearly very stubborn, very egotistical, narcissistic, all the things that Donald Trump, we know he is, doesn't mean he deserves to be assassinated. None of it. But it also doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking about that stuff just because someone tried to assassinate him. Just like I'm not going to stop talking about, Democrats shouldn't stop talking about Joe Biden shouldn't be on this ticket anymore because he's too old to do the job. I don't even think he should be in the White House right now. And I'm going to keep talking about that. I don't care. I don't care if it feels like, the whole call for unity. Don't buy into calls for unity. Unity is not noble. There's nothing noble about us all being on the exact same page about stuff. Unity is we're the United States, but we're united in our law and our common goals. It doesn't mean we agree on everything. In fact, the whole country was built on the premise of the fact that we wouldn't agree with each other, and checks and balances, and trying to keep people in power from having too much power and making sure that they have checks against them. Our whole government is based on us arguing about stuff and debating and compromising and all this kind of thing. Uniting is not in anything other than the title of the United States of America, okay? It doesn't mean we agree about everything. It doesn't mean we have to all be on the same page and just step in line. Get in line. I'm not going to do that. If that bothers you, I'm sorry, but I just don't think it's healthy. I'm going to continue to call Donald Trump out for the things I think he needs to be called out about. I'm going to call same thing for Joe Biden. I'm going to call him out too. And I'm going to give them credit when they do the right thing. Joe Biden signed a bill last week that Congress passed overwhelmingly with bipartisan support that supports easing some regulations so we can quicker get nuclear facilities updated and online, et cetera. Because there's just too much red tape. And the truth is, nuclear energy is a great option, especially it's like super clean. It's cleaner than any of the other ones. Solar, wind, all the other. It's the most efficient. And it's also it's the least climate intention in CO2 kind of stuff. Okay, so that's a good thing that Joe Biden did, and I'm going to give him credit for it. Good job. I agree with that bill that you signed. I agree with what Congress did, proving that Congress can still do some things that are good. I'm going to give him credit for it. I'm also going to harp on him for trying to forgive more student loans or pause student loan paybacks and stuff. I think that's wrong of him. And that's what we should all be doing. We should be able to criticize someone's actions without vilifying them. I can say that Joe Biden made a bad policy decision and that he shouldn't be president anymore, or that he's too old to be president, without saying that someone should assassinate him. And same for Donald Trump. So we, the voters, are also, once again, part of the problem here, because we are reacting in a way that they perceive as positive to this rhetoric. So when we get fired up, or we get violent, or, like I said, we break into a Capitol on January 6th and violently overthrow the police to get in there and try to change the election results, or we riot on the streets because George Floyd was killed, and we think that that's the solution to our anger, is to go burn down businesses and municipality buildings, and that's not. Those are not, it is up to us. And it's not just about that. It's also about voting to reward people that use this kind of fear-mongering. We've got to stop doing it. I'm not going to support someone that uses violent rhetoric because I think it influences people that are mentally ill, potentially. We don't know anything about this shooter, like I said, but we don't know that he's mentally ill. But we at least know he's susceptible to wanting to plot to kill Donald Trump. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen in a vacuum. by itself. I could be wrong. He could be crazy like Hinckley, and he could have been doing it to impress Jodie Foster. We have no idea. And that's what else is going to be foolish about this. If you say that this is the Democrats' fault and it turns out it's some lunatic thing like that, or like I said, it could very well be that he's a conservative like me that believes that Donald Trump is not a true conservative and he thought that he should take it into his own hands. We just don't know. We don't know what happened. And so let's not pretend that we did. Anyway, that's it for me on this early version of the podcast. I'll probably do another one later this week. I also suggest on Fridays, I don't talk about this a lot because I'm going to start putting it, I think I'll start getting the show and putting it on YouTube, not in my normal podcast feed, but if you want to go watch it on YouTube. I do a show on Fridays with a couple guys. One of them is ex-Secret Service, and the other guy is a Democrat that's running for Congress in Ohio. I think our show will be really interesting on Friday because we've got an ex-Secret Service agent guy. I'm going to talk to him for sure about these security failures and what he thinks. We kind of briefly talked via text on he's like, I don't understand why someone's not on that roof. So that show will be interesting. I will get a link to it in the show notes here once I have it. I don't actually know where it's going to be. So I will get you that. It's called Yerg's Radio. The show is called Up the Middle, and it's on Friday at 10 a.m. Central. That's when we're doing it, 10 to 12. Or if you're East Coast, it's 11 to 1. And I think that'll be an interesting conversation this week for sure. Because you got me, conservative, we got a Democrat in there too that's running for Congress currently, and then an ex-Secret Service guy. So it's, I think, going to be interesting and very applicable to what happened this past week. So keep an eye out for that. I will probably grab the video and throw it on my YouTube channel after we record it on Friday. But I will put a link, and I'll watch out on Instagram and on YouTube. I will put a link to it when I know where the link is. Other than that, thank you for joining me on a Monday episode, and I will catch you later this week.